You want to figure out something that you're doing with your life that's worth not getting drunk and screwing up.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's fun.
Yeah, you want to have something on the other side of that teeter-totter that has some value to you.
You bet. You bet. And so that you can think, no, I'm not going to get drunk and screw that up.
Right.
Because, you know, you might say, well, why do people drink too much? It's like, if you like alcohol, that's a stupid question.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, why do people drink too much? Well, because it's great.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, so why stop? Well, you do stupid things when you're drunk. You hurt yourself. You compromise your health. It's really hard on the people around you. You tend to turn into a liar, and it screws up your life.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but it's pretty fun. Yeah, well, it is. But you need something better than that. And what's better isn't being straight and not making mistakes. It's like, that's all prohibition in some sense. What's better is, no, you need an adventure, man. You need to get out there and have something to do.
Yeah.
And something worth waking up for. And that's the substitute for the addiction. Actually, the addiction is the substitute for that, if truth be known.
Right, but eventually you can flip that around, and you can find the the much girthier and more. There's a lot of sexy weight in having self-worth, you know, and that's what I've started to slowly find in my life.
Yeah, and you might also, like, the thing too is, you know, I mean, there's something kind of, I don't know, the bar scene, the heavy drinking scene, there's something kind of edgy about it, you know, and something kind of adventurous about it. And, you know, you see that, it's kind of dramatized in people like Tom Waits, who's got that real hard edge, or Johnny Cash, or people, hard-living guys, you know.
Oh, yeah. Guys with 6 or 7 livers in them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, there's something kind of romantic about that.
Yes.
And fair enough, you know, but, well, then what that means is you have to build something like that into your own life. So maybe you need to you know, take an adventurous trip now and then. You got to have something there that's edgy to replace that.
And sometimes if people need a catalyst, so there's that moment, right? Like for me, the catalyst was like, you know, I was experimenting with cocaine, and I sacrificed like a neat job opportunity with that. I had planned on being there for the job, and next thing you know, I'd spent the night doing cocaine.
Right.
So I realized, okay, this is a little out of my control, so I have to make this.
Would have life like been like you for you if you were addicted? So you don't have a career anymore.
No.
Right? So you've given all that up and failed. So that's fun. So that's going to drive you even more towards drugs.
Yeah, it would have been all my dreams. It would have been miserable.
Right.
It would have been hell.
Exactly. So why quit drinking? So I don't end up in hell. Hey, there's a reason to stop. And then if you make that hell real, it's like, here's all the details of my personal hell. Yes, let's avoid that.
Right.
So then you have something to run the hell away from.
Right. So now you have something towards and something to run away from. And I'll say this too, if there's any young men or women out there who are listening to Jordan feeling like, well, I don't know if, you know, if I start doing something different, like my friends are going to act a certain.
Yeah, they are.
They are.
Yeah, that's right.
But you're going to start creating conversations. You're going to become the intrigue because you're going to be bringing something new to the table. And
you're also going to find out who your friends are.
Yeah.
Because if you're starting to put your life together and you have friends that object, those are not friends. Those are just people you know. They're not friends, because a friend is someone, this is one of the hallmarks of a friend. Here's 2 hallmarks. A friend is someone you can tell bad news to. And they won't tell you why you're an idiot, and they won't interfere with your suffering. They'll just listen, and maybe they'll suffer along with you. Okay, so you can tell bad news to them, and they won't tell you some worse thing that happened to them. They'll listen, and they'll suffer along with you. But a friend is also someone you can tell good news to. And the friend will say, wow, in this vale of tears, something good happened to you. Great, man.
Congrats.
I'm wonderful. It's rare. It's unlikely. Good for you. I hope 10 more things like that happen. And they're not envious, and they're not jealous, and they're not one-upping you. And if you're trying to get your life together, if you're trying to get your life together and your friends get in the way, that's actually real useful for you, because you've now identified who your friends aren't. And you might think, well, I can't give them up. It's like, oh, yes, you can. And not only can you should, and it would be better for them. Because if they're aiming down and they want you going down with them, there's nothing good about what's happening to them, and there's certainly nothing good about that for you.
Yeah, they're not going to, and then they're going to learn, wow, I'm going to lose friends if I continue in these directions. Yeah.
Exactly. Although the problem with local pleasure, well, as the narrative made clear, is that you better look out if you're impulsive, because it's going to kick back on you hard. And the reason is, you're only considering the immediate time frame. And the problem is that things propagate across all the time frames. And so just because something works really well this second, cocaine, for example, doesn't mean that it's a tenable solution to the class of all problems. So usually, often, people pursue local pleasure because that's the best they can imagine. It's the best they've been taught. They don't see another alternative. So it can be ignorance. It can be they don't want to adopt the responsibility, because part of the reason people drink alcohol is to get rid of their responsibility. I mean, that's, you know, you hear people drink because they have problems. It's like, yeah, no. Some people drink because they're anxious, and alcoholics drink because they're in withdrawal. But young people drink because they're sick and tired of being responsible, because it's annoying. It's like, so I'll drink enough, I won't care about the medium to long-term consequences, because alcohol, that's exactly what alcohol does. It doesn't make you ignorant of the medium to long-term consequences, but it makes you not care about them. And partly it's because it dampens anxiety. So it dampens anxiety, leaves your positive emotion circuits intact, so then you can go out there and do stupid fun things. And that's like, that's a party, really. Let's go do stupid fun things. That's a party. But the medium to long-term consequences are, it's risky. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but it's risky. So, yeah, they don't know better. That's the answer, I would say. It isn't that you're trying to avoid booze exactly. It's that you're trying to restructure your whole life, you know, because if you're a drinker, then all your friends are drinkers, and you're used to drinking in every social situation, and the places that you go to socialize are places that you drink, and like it's really built in as a whole set of habits. And so what you have to do is kind of redesign your life, and you have to think of things. You can't just stop drinking. You have to figure out what you're going to start doing instead of drinking. There's a hole that you have to fill. And I would also say, if you fail and slip, don't berate yourself and beat yourself up. Just start quitting again, because, you know, if you could cut your alcohol intake down 75%, that's a hell of a lot better than zero. And often people go all or nothing, just like they do when they're quitting cigarettes. And, you know, they'll quit for a month and then have a cigarette, and they'll say, oh my God, now I've broken the pact, and then they'll smoke a whole pack and they'll be smoking again. You don't have to do that. You can just decide that you slipped and that you're going to get back on the wagon again. And, you know, it can take a long time. But I do believe that you need a better vision of life, right? You have to find something to do that's better than alcohol. And that might take some real consideration, especially if alcohol is a very potent drug for you.
Like, there were times I was like, man, I could never be a sober person because I'm afraid of, you know, I can't communicate with women, or I'm afraid to, you know, stand around in a circle with tough guys without having like a beer in my hand, you know, or like all these little crutches, you know, I can't. And then I remember when I got like 90 days sober, I was just like, holy shit, man. Like, it was like the first time I'd ever done something like for myself, you know? Yeah. And it just, man, it felt unprecedented.
Yeah, well, it was.
It felt like I'd gone to the moon almost.
How old were you when you started drinking?
I don't know, probably like 17 or 16, you know, kind of regular.
Yeah.
It was pretty basic, and I never did a bunch of it, you know. But my biggest thing was just emotional sobriety. Like, I was so drunk on my own insecurities and low self-worth.
Well, alcohol really is a good drug for coping with anxiety. That's why people use it. So it does too. If you really like alcohol, it does two things to you. It makes you more extroverted and enthusiastic while you're on the ascending limb of the blood alcohol curve, which is why you have to keep drinking once you start. Because if you plateau, that goes away. So you got to keep drinking. Okay, so that's one thing. It makes you more enthusiastic and more full of positive emotion. And the second thing it does is reduce anxiety. Yeah. And so if you are a bit more socially anxious, and you also have that positive response to alcohol, which everyone doesn't have, by the way, then it's a great drug. But the problem is, it's a great drug for the moment. Right. Right. There's consequences.
Yeah, the sounds when it's not great.
Well, it also, alcohol is an interesting drug because it actually doesn't make people stupid. This has been tested. Like, alcohol, people who are drunk will take far more risk. And you might say, well, that's because they're too stupid to understand the risk. It's like, no, they're not. If you ask them about the risk when they're drunk, they can outline it perfectly. What it stops them from doing is caring about the risk. It's actually, and that's part of the anti-anxiety component. It's like, yeah, the risk is, that's why you can drive around drunk at high speed in a car, which is a really stupid thing to do. So alcohol has exactly that effect. It is a great anti-anxiety drug, but it does stop you, and you said it stopped you from learning the skills that you need in a social social circumstance to be able to cope with that. So then it actually stops you from dealing with the anxiety. You don't have to learn how to overcome it. That's not good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're not really learning. You're kind of just staying in the. You're baiting you're kind of meeting the anxiety with a little bit of light medication, but you're never getting through whatever the anxiety was.
Yeah, you don't have to learn the skills. Well, you said you like to stand there with a beer in your hand. Well, it gives you something to do. You didn't know what else to do. And then you didn't have to learn.